Hi, Daddy. How you doing? My name is Ryan. I am one half of Sam and Ryan, doing a solo video today. Sam and I are big fans of Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, Seth Meyers, and Stephen Colbert. And if you haven't heard, because of the writer's strike, which we've talked about on this channel, all of those late night shows, talk shows, commentary shows are currently on pause because all of them have writers and those writers are on strike. You know, they obviously don't have anything going on because their shows have been postponed because of the strike. And so they have started a podcast. There they are. It's called Strike Force 5. And this article from Deadline says, Strike Force 5 premiere tops podcast charts, keeping talk show hosts busy during labor strike. Labor strife. Oh, tricky. One letter away. I just turned a little light on, lit myself a little bit better. High production value here on Sam and Ryan. Okay, so anyway, essentially what these guys are doing is they are starting a podcast. It sounds like all of the money that this podcast makes is going to go to continue to pay their writing staff. So all of these talk shows have writing staffs. They produce a show every single night, and just the sheer amount of human power that it takes to keep a production running every single night. Securing talent, writing monologues, writing scripts, playing games, all of the things that you see them do, they do that like every single night. And so they have a staff to help them do that. This is true of almost anyone who speaks publicly, by the way. Almost everyone who speaks publicly in any way, shape, or form, entertainment, politics, what have you, have a writing staff. This is incredibly common. So they made this podcast so that they can get money from this podcast, pay their writers while their writers are on strike. Look at that. Everyone's happy. Everyone's supporting each other. How nice. So this is where it gets interesting. The other night, Sam and I were talking about it. And we were like, we should look this up on YouTube because we want to hear this podcast. Like, let's see if this podcast is as good as we think it's going to be. We were super excited. So we go on YouTube, we scroll a few videos down, and we find this. Woke late night hosts get destroyed. Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon start Hollywood strike podcast. This is sad. Cringe. So Sam and I couldn't help ourselves. We watched this video and it's extraordinary. It's actually absolutely extraordinary. I'm obsessed with it. I've probably watched it 16 times. I'm gonna show you the video now. We're going to watch it together. I don't know who this person is. I mean no ill will towards him. Also, his name is Ryan, too, which makes me sad, giving a bad name for the Ryans. But anyway, this is the cringy, woke, late-night hosts getting destroyed by this guy named Ryan, who hates them because they're Hollywood elite, woke liberals. Let's take a look and learn all the things that Ryan has to tell us. Okay, so already so obsessed with the aesthetic and the intro graphic and the boom dong bow dong bang gan jump. Already obsessed. I am hook, line, and sinker. I am in. I hate Hollywood liberals. I want to see the Jimmys of late night television get absolutely destroyed because they made me get a vaccine. Let's dig in, see what my boy Ryan has to say.
It's been almost 4 months since the Hollywood writers in the studios couldn't come to an agreement by the end of their contract.
I'm obsessed with him. He has this whole OBS overlay and he's like talking about it and he has all the graphics. So I'm gonna do my best to match his aesthetic in this video. What's up, you guys? Ryan McCartan here. Let's dig in to the biggest story ever. 5 men with TV shows are making a podcast to help people who are on strike to get fair labor negotiations, and we won't stand for it.
And in that 4 months, a lot of people realize, man, we don't miss the writers very much. We don't miss what they were doing, especially when it comes to late night television.
All right, yeah, so already loving this guy. We don't miss the writers very much. I mean, okay, first of all, that's just so rude. But second of all, we haven't even experienced that the writers have gone anywhere. We are still watching predominantly content that was produced before the writers' strike even happened. So we don't even have writers to miss. I'm also just obsessed with this trend of the hatred for late night television talk shows. Literally just because Stephen Colbert talked about Black Lives Matter and Jimmy Kimmel talked about Trump and Jimmy Fallon talked about vaccines. It's like, oh, yeah, they're empathetic. That's okay, right? Isn't that okay?
Late night TV, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, these people who decide to use these platforms for woke activism and political hackery instead of just, making people laugh like they used to.
Instead of making people laugh like they used to. Oh, man. Remember the good old days? Remember when late night TV was just funny and the woke mind virus hadn't infected late night shows to tell us that racism is bad and poor people need help? Ugh, the good old days. Also, not for nothing, this is what late night shows used to look like.
Aren't you supposed to be in rehab now?
We didn't discuss this in the pre-interview.
No, but it'll be 3 months, and
no, I think to be honest, we're here for a movie.
We have to what?
Let's stay on the positive.
Oh,
aside from that side of the positive.
Yeah. All right.
Come on now.
I'm just going to go back really quick. This man's literally just said the same thing twice in a row. Let's just go back really quick.
Late night TV, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, these people who decide to use these platforms for woke activism and political hackery instead of just, making people laugh like they used to.
That's time one.
These late night shows featuring, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, these people who are just turning their platforms into woke propaganda, political activism, instead of just making people laugh like they used to.
This man is going to go on to criticize them for having writers because good hosts would be creative enough to write for themselves. And the point is not lost on me that this man had one soundbite that he repeated twice. This is why you have other people write your material for you.
And then when the writers went on strike, these shows immediately shut down because these comedians can't write their own material. They need a team of people to do it for them.
This is one of the points that I want to get into the most. There's this weird animosity towards entertainers, and it always makes me laugh. Like Steve Bannon. If you guys know who Steve Bannon is, he despises the Hollywood elite. And guess what Steve Bannon's first career attempt was when he was younger? A screenwriter in Hollywood. So now he has a little podcast or internet show where he criticizes Hollywood all the time. Donald Trump was an entertainer, had this really successful show. Then the show ended. He didn't have cachet in Hollywood anymore. Then he ran on a political platform that was like criticizing coastal elites who are out of touch with reality because he's out of touch with them, and that makes him sad. And this guy criticizing talk shows because they're failing and no one cares about talk shows. Well, what are you doing? This is a talk show. You want to be them. You're just mad that you aren't, so you're criticizing them. And honestly, this is not like a political video. People can have their own politics. I don't know. I find this cringy and kind of funny, but I find it so interesting that people who criticize entertainers are usually trying to be entertainers.
These people are all multimillionaires, right? So one, the idea that they need to launch a podcast to help their writers out instead of, if you really cared that much, you could just pay out of your own pocket. I'm sure that'd be no problem, but they're not going to do that. They're going to launch a podcast, and the revenue they get from it is going to go to their writers who are currently on strike.
Yeah. Isn't that just good business sense? Why is this a criticism? Again, taking the politics out of it. Why is this a criticism at all? Oh, these late night hosts who have all of this money, instead of just giving all of their money to other people, they want to make more money and then give the surplus to them. That's really noble. I just find it interesting that the complaint is why are they working for more money instead of just giving the money that already exists to the people who need it? You mean food stamps? You mean social programs? You kind of sound like a liberal, my guy. So he played a trailer from the podcast and said that it wasn't funny, and people are saying that they're getting annihilated. And of course he feels that way because if you're on one side of the internet where you want them to get annihilated, that's all you're going to see. And if you're on another side of the internet where you don't want them to get annihilated, you're never going to see it. So I think we know what side of Twitter he's on. I don't know if you can see that on the side of his what's happening there on Twitter, but he has "we will not comply" as his second suggested, which is the movement about not obeying COVID lockdown procedures and things like that. Again, you can believe whatever you want to, but, that does kind of tell you a lot about who this guy is and what his various news feeds might look like.
A lot of people in Hollywood are like, what happens if we can't send our actors to promote their movies on late night shows? And then we see Barbie and Oppenheimer both do massive, massive things worldwide at the box office.
Wait, so the point that he makes is we don't need late night shows to promote movies because movies still do well. And then he goes on to talk about how well Barbie and Oppenheimer did. Ryan, are you a Barbenheimer stan? Fierce, bro. Uh-oh, not me, like, thinking we could be friends.
They're not funny. They're not entertaining. They need a team of people to write their jokes. And right now, what people want is authenticity.
This is the last point that I'm going to make. I don't want to watch the rest of this video, but this is just the last thing that I want to say. And I kind of touched on this earlier, but I've seen this take a lot about, like, what do we even need writers for? Why do people have teams of writers who write their stuff for them? Like, if you're really good, you would write your own script. And it just, like, it goes to show that you shouldn't criticize something unless you know what you're talking about. A television production on the scale of a nightly late-night talk show requires like 1 million people. And yes, you need a team of writers to facilitate the script because the script is like all show long and you're producing it every single day. This man's video is 4 minutes and 49 seconds. It's not an hour. And I don't know what his life is. Maybe he produces 1 4-minute video a day, but doing an hour-long show that's live on air every night requires a team of people. And the other complaint that I hear all the time is like it illustrates this like lack of creativity that you need other people to like write your stuff for you. I hate to break it to you, pal, but based on your Twitter feed and your odium for woke Hollywood, I would assume that you're a Trump fan. So I'm going to tell you something, give you a little peek behind the curtain. You know who has a team of writers? Donald Trump. You know that thing that he looks at when he makes speeches? It's called a teleprompter. You think he wrote all that stuff? Yeah, I know that he riffs, and the comedians on these late night shows riff too. They're not glued to a script. But when you're busy and high profile and speaking in public, you have a team of writers. Your favorite guy, Donald Trump, has a team of writers. This is an incredibly common thing, and I hate to say it, but if you were successful enough to be the host of a show that a bunch of people watched every single night live on television, you would have a writer's room too. Time is a finite resource and you need help to produce things of this massive scale. We make YouTube videos. We don't need a writer's room. We are not the same as them, and you clearly don't understand that. Which is fine, because I'm doing the same thing that he's doing. I'm on YouTube just talking about stuff. But my word of advice to him and to anyone is that if you want to complain about something, you should know what you're complaining about. Because it's not about lack of creativity that makes these people need writers. It's lack of time. Writers are extraordinarily important, not just to the fabric of entertainment, but in multiple facets of our daily life and in the media that we consume, from political to entertainment and everything in between. Writers are important. You should support writers. What they're doing is a noble thing. I think that they're all very talented. I'm looking forward to this podcast, and I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next one. Ryan, you probably will never watch this, but come on, man. We have the same name. Let's do better. Why are you so mad? They're just trying to do a nice thing for their friends and for the people who work for them. Your video got 73,000 views. You're gonna make like, you know, a couple $100 from this video. Donate it to the writers. Wouldn't that be great? Anyway, we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, Daddy.